Good day to everybody everywhere. Thank you so much for joining us once again for the Shang Institute School of Tibetan Medicine webinar series. Here on our webinar series, we discuss topics of health and wellness, exploring tools from Eastern and Western traditions, from ancient spiritual philosophies and healing sciences, along with modern research and current issues in global public health. Please like and subscribe. We would love to connect with you at any time. Let me introduce our institute, the Shang Institute School of Tibetan Medicine. I welcome you and thank you for joining us. We offer courses and programs on traditional Tibetan medicine internationally in many countries and online. Our courses range from short lectures to our full-length 4-year program of Tibetan medicine. Let me tell you about our Institute founder. The Shang Institute exists today internationally exclusively due to the tireless work and the vision of our beloved founder and spiritual teacher, Chogyal Namkhai Norbu Rinpoche. Chogyal Namkhai Norbu was one of the world's leading scholars of Tibetan culture and masters of the spiritual heritage of Tibetan Buddhism and Dzogchen teachings. He spearheaded groundbreaking research in the field of ancient Tibetan culture. He founded multiple international organizations for education and humanitarian work. Chogyal Namkhai Norbu shared the precious teachings of Tibetan Buddhism and Dzogchen to many thousands of students worldwide over several decades in numerous countries around the world. Rinpoche worked tirelessly to proliferate the wisdom and culture of the Tibetan traditions, as well as to benefit the diaspora of Tibetan people in their homeland and abroad. Rinpoche's work filled many volumes, touched many lives, and spanned many decades. And I have no doubt that his teachings will resound for many years to come. And it is our honor and delight to carry on his legacy with one of his primary international institutes, the Shang Institute. And we are the Tibetan Medicine School, the Shang Institute School of Tibetan Medicine. So please check out our programs. Let me tell you a little bit about some of our upcoming programs. First of all, this August, we're going to be having a program on diet and lifestyle at our center on the island of Tenerife in Las Canarias in Spain. So with this program, in traditional Tibetan medicine, diet and lifestyle are paramount importance in maintaining our health and preventing disease and dealing with health challenges. So with this program, we'll see how diet and lifestyle choices can affect every aspect of our physical being, our energetic being, and our mental health as well. So we can get to know the elemental function and qualities on a natural elemental level of the food we eat and of our environment and the season and different aspects, including our age, our own constitution and elemental personality, and where we live and how we work. All of these factors contribute to give us information about what sort of diet and lifestyle are best for us. And so this is an incredibly important part of traditional Tibetan medicine, and it's something that's very easily approachable for anybody. So this class is going to be appropriate for people who just want to gain insight into their own personal health. For example, in the traditional Tibetan medicine text, the Gyuji tells us that studying Tibetan medicine is appropriate for anyone who is not only a healthcare professional or healer, but also anybody who wants to improve their own health and maintain their own high quality of life. So this is a great study for anyone who's just interested in holistic health and wellness in general. Dr. Menpa Phuntsog Wangmo is going to be leading this course, and she develops all of our programs around the world, and she's a fabulous authority on traditional Tibetan medicine, especially when it comes to the teachings of diet and lifestyle. So this course will be offered in modules, a 3-part series, both online and also I believe there's an in-person module as well on the beautiful island of Tenerife. So if you're interested, you can check our website, and later on we're going to have some links for that as well. Another course that is always very near and dear to us at the Shang Institute is what's basically our flagship course, our 4-year training in traditional Tibetan medicine. And we start modules of the cohorts of the 4-year training on a regular basis. And the next 4-year training cycle is going to start in January of 2021. We would love to have you join us. This course is offered in modules that are online and also in person. It's a big commitment. It's a very serious training, full 4 years studying the entire root text, the entire opus of the classical texts of traditional Tibetan medicine, known as the 4 tantras or the Gyuji, with a wonderful commentary, a lot of resources and help both from our institute director, Menpa Phuntsog Wangmo, and our other staff teachers, and also our team of alumni who are going to be adding supportive resources and materials for the students. So we always have, I am actually an alumni of this course as well, and I can tell you that if you are very serious about studying traditional Tibetan medicine to be a professional practitioner, it's an incredible course. It's actually a unique course that's based entirely on the curricula of the traditional Tibetan medicine schools in Tibet and in India. So you're welcome to check that out as well. We can provide more information on that. So if you are interested in traditional Tibetan medicine, or you have any questions about our institute and our programs, please feel free to visit our newly renovated website at tibetanmedicineschool.org. Also, please like and subscribe on Facebook and YouTube, and also join our email list. We give we give updates about our programs, and we would love to have you in the loop for our content. So please join our email list, like and subscribe. We would love to collaborate with you at any time. Also, let me mention another institute which is very dear to us, which is the American Tibetan Medical Association, ATMA. You can look up ATMA at americantibetanmedicalassociation.org. And ATMA is a nonprofit institute, which is a professional organization for practitioners and patients and supporters of traditional Tibetan medicine here in the United States. So we provide resources about qualified professional practitioners around the country, as well as training programs, and as well as just general information about traditional Tibetan medicine and the state of its the young and blossoming profession of Tibetan medicine here in the United States. So we are accepting memberships both for professionals and students and supporters. So if you are interested in learning more about traditional Tibetan medicine and getting involved somehow here in the United States, then please check out ATMA. Also, especially if you are a practitioner and you want to loop in and get some resources and have a bit more community and the support of a professional organization, please do check out the American Tibetan Medical Association. We would love to collaborate with you. So today we are going to be learning about suffering, happiness, and the path of enlightenment. We have our special guest today, Tulku Dakpa Rinpoche, and our ongoing host, Menpa Phuntsog Wangmo. So this week, we welcome our special guest, Tulku Dakpa Rinpoche, a prolific teacher of the Tibetan Buddhist Dharma and the founder of the Danakosha Ling Dharma Center in Finland. Tulku Dakpa will lead our discussion on how we can transform our mundane life experience of suffering as well as happiness, both suffering and happiness, these emotional highs and lows and this kind of tumultuous ground of our mental and energetic health, and how we can work with those dimensions and transform that and apply that to become the wisdom of enlightenment, to help out with our teachings, developing our mind training, improving the quality of our life in those sort of ways. So our webinar host, Menpa Phuntsog Wangmo, will also share from the perspective of traditional Tibetan medicine on the nature of suffering and happiness, as well as how the so-called flowers and fruits of health enable the capacity to pursue spiritual wisdom. Because if we have our health with us, then we can pursue our higher goals of wisdom and developing compassion and just learning more about our true nature. So at this time, I'd like to tell you just a little bit about our special guest, Tulku Dakpa Rinpoche. Rinpoche is the recognized reincarnation of a Drupwang Rogza Sonam Palge. Rinpoche studied at the Mindrolling Monastery University of Tibetan Buddhism, where he was certified as a lineage holder of both sutra and tantra teachings. He teaches internationally, offering a variety of programs and projects from his vast training and experience with Tibetan Buddhism. Rinpoche is the founder and spiritual director of Danakosha Ling Dharma Center in Finland, a unique Dharma community in the lineage tradition of the Ngagyur Nyingma school of Tibetan Buddhism. Rinpoche is also the founder of the Danakosha Trust, a non-profit organization promoting culture, education, and humanity in the Himalaya region. Rinpoche's programs include his 5-year training course, which is called Relaxing in the Nature of Mind of the Great Perfection. This course presents the complete teachings of the Buddhist path from the foundations of Tibetan Buddhism to the practice of the Great Perfection. So Rinpoche, we are honored and delighted to have you with us. Thank you so much for joining us today. I will also introduce our ongoing webinar host and our Institute Director, Menpa Phuntsog Wangmo. Menpa Phuntsog Wangmo is a practitioner of traditional Tibetan medicine with over 30 years of experience in clinical practice, as well as teaching. She received her advanced degree from the Lhasa University School of Tibetan Medicine. Menpa Wangmo is the director of the Shang Institute School of Tibetan Medicine. She teaches Tibetan medicine, developing programs and teaching many students all around the world. She has developed and taught programs in the United States, in Spain, in Italy, in Russia, and many places. So we're delighted to have her with us. Menpa Wangmo is also the co-founder of the American Tibetan Medical Association, ATMA, the Tibetan Medicine Professional Organization in the United States. So Menpa Wangmo, thank you so much for joining us. We are delighted to have you with us as always today.
Thank you.
So before we get started, I would also like to give a special thanks to Matthew Schmuckler, who's doing our technical support, keeping us all online and developing a lot of our materials. Menpa Schmuckler is also a graduate of the Shang Institute School of Tibetan Medicine, and he was really providing invaluable support, working on behind the scenes with our tech and our media and all of that. So thank you so much, Matthew. We're very thankful to have you with us today. And also I'd like to thank our translators internationally from time to time. We have translators in Spain, Las Canarias, in Russia, different places who are sharing our webinar with a larger audience. So thank you so much to our translators. And thank you so much again to our guests all around the world. We are delighted to have you with us. I will be your moderator today, and my name is Adam Okerblom. I'm a doctor of acupuncture and oriental medicine, a practitioner and certified instructor of Tibetan medicine, and a proud alumnus of the Shang Institute School of Tibetan Medicine. So I'm here in the San Francisco Bay Area, and it's wonderful to have you joining us today. All right. So Rinpoche, it's great to have you with us. We hope you're feeling great and having a wonderful time so far. So you are at Danakosha Ling in Finland. And so can you tell us a little bit about how has it been for you with the current global health crisis of the COVID-19 and all of the changes and challenges around the world that brings? How has that affected your practice and your Sangha, your community? Just give us an update. How have you been dealing with this these days?
Thank you very much to have me here. And yeah, that question or our discussion about this international crisis, I think, of course, every country, every people, everyone, they are talking and they feel, how should I say, many of people also feel little scared, suffer, and etc. then my personally, if we think of a little bit about Buddha Dharma, or if we kind of really try to follow the Buddha's teaching, and then one of the most important of Buddha's teaching is also Buddha mentioned that renunciation. Renunciation means more like knowing of the essenceless of the samsara. So today's situation is kind of great reminder for us to be, like generate our renunciation, because actually this sickness, or how you could say the crisis, whatever, it it is very unpredictable. We don't know when will be, happening this to every of us, and what kind of be really happening, because we see every day thousands of people are sick, and then next to is dying. So you hear morning to evening someone dying, or like thousands of people dying, thousands of people sick. Whenever you hear these things, then might be this is a little bit great teaching somehow. If you think of the Buddhist or Buddha Dharma, or it try to be, we are really in the enlightenment, then those are the one of the great support of the having renunciation. Then next is that if we think of the Bodhicitta mind, thinking of the to generate compassion. And then also when you hear, today's the medias and all these kind of informations are just like few months, even more than few months, almost now half years, they're talking only these things. So when you hear, see the how many people die, how many people are sick, how many really families are suffering of the they lost their families, even they have no solution to the say how you could say like goodbye. All these things are when we're seeing, hearing, also maybe a little bit support of the compassion, time to time, because our mind is actually very stubborn. Even Buddha says these things, anytime, every moment, it's happening individually or generally, but still we think we are fine, we think it will be never happening or something like that. So therefore, and these kind of movements can be also little support of the compassion too. So therefore, like the thing, or someone who really want to put the Dharma teaching in our mind, maybe this crisis is not can be also think positive way, positive way. And then of course, uh, if we are not thinking of the enlightenment, or if we're thinking of only this life is everything, like in Buddhism, that this life is very short moment of the period. We have a long journey until to in the really achieved like everlasting happiness or enlightenment. It will be a long journey supposed to be. So therefore, this life is very short. But many of human beings, they are concerned of only this life, and this life is the most important. If we lost this life, then they think that we lost everything. If certain people will think that way, then I think this situation is also very sad. But even individual, that kind of people is really, it will be great suffer and great difficult. And so maybe those they need some kind of methods, I think, something like that.
Yes, absolutely. It's very interesting with with these very tragic challenges of the COVID-19 global health crisis and all of this. it kind of reminds us that, in Buddhism, we have all this beautiful imagery and really kind of amazing, always, talking about the blessings and the joyfulness, and like, for example, these beautiful statues and images you are surrounded by there at your temple. But in reality, the nature of a Buddhism fundamentally is telling us about the suffering of samsara. And one thing it reminds me is that even if you go all the way to the original, most basic story of Buddha himself, it was becoming aware of the reality of sickness and death and disease that initially, sparked his inspiration to renounce his beautiful, blessed, royal life and then pursue enlightenment. So I think that this is really interesting. The challenges of this scary and tragic disease can be inspiring for us to do that renunciation, as you said. Is that kind of along the lines of what you're sharing with us now?
Right.
So Rinpoche, will you tell us a little bit about your community there in Finland is quite unique, and it appears to be quite well established. Will you just tell us a little bit about Danakosha Ling and your work there with this center?
Yes, and I think Danakosha is same as like many of our Western Buddhist centers around in the world. And then we here the Danakosha Ling, we try to also study Buddha Dharma, and at the same time we try to also practice like really what the meaning of the Dharma. And in order to that practice, then there's many kind of way to practice, like many of Buddhist followers, they just try to do some meditate, silent meditate. And then some of the followers, and they more meditate with recitation. And then some of the Buddhist followers, they meditate by work and etc. So therefore, in our kind of Tibetan tradition, study is important. And then when they are concerning of the practice, and then practice with recitation and meditation and etc. So therefore, we are also trying to do kind of same way. And when we talk about study, then study, firstly, the hearing of the teaching is very important. And that is also kind of important to hear all complete of the teachings, not like one part from there and one part from there. Normally, the busy lifetime, it is very hard to kind of have time to receiving kind of all, compound, all kind of, how you could say that, Buddha's teaching from the Vinaya to up Mahayana or Great Profession Yana. So we try to hear some listening and study with all kind of important or essential of the Buddha's teaching of the 9 yanas. And that is one of our main kind of program. And then once we hear those teachings and just hear, or even something, I think that is not, it is very good, but that is not really much benefit of the effect of our mind. That still we have emotion or negative emotions such hatred, desire, and etc. As well as we have also hope and fear, stress, and many things are still there. Even we know many of the Westerners particularly, they learn very well, like many ways, but still then the problem comes in our mind, and then we are stuck there. So therefore, we try to also a little bit reflection on the teachings. Sometimes we do group practice, sometimes or mostly also individually. and then more reflection on the teachings. I think that is something people get more confident on the teachings. Normally that how confident gain uh, through the actually reflection on the teachings. Then the once we get more little bit confident, for example, of the impermanent. Really, we know that life is impermanent. We know that every phenomena are impermanent, means that momentarily change. If we have very good confidence on that, then I think if we meditate on that and if we have a realization of the totally about impermanent, I think we will be really released many things. One things if we understand that is the momentarily change, that in Mahayana we say there's like beyond the remaining or beyond the rest remaining cessation. So the really impermanent is something like that. There's no time for the remind anything. So because of that, maybe there's no such we call arising, or there's no such we call cessation or a stop. So therefore, even if we understood the very kind of deep impermanent, and that could be great also help for us. And that kind of realization after confidence, then we really need to meditate on it. So therefore, we try to learn how to study, listening, reflection, and meditate on the Buddha's teaching. That individually, maybe we don't necessarily have all kind of methods, but however, if the society, if you are holding of the Buddha Dharma, which we call Buddhist center, so therefore, the Buddhist centers, it is quite important to share the all essential information to the whoever want to hear of the Buddha Dharma. Because of those are the important. Because of that, Buddha taught also these 9 yanas. But 9 yana is not necessarily needed of the for one person. But when we think of the common or giving the really information of the Buddha or teaching of the Buddha, then it's called necessary. So therefore, we try to make sometimes longer kind of programs, such you mentioned about 5 years course. And then when we make also a gathering practice in Vajrayana, we call Drupchen or Drumchut, like 7 weeks, and with ritual sadhanas. That those are the great teachings. So therefore, we try to several different programs with the all sangha together, and then individually they're practicing and meditation and etc.
Yes, wow. Yeah, it is so fortunate when people have the opportunity to share that community, that kind of sangha connection at the Dharma centers, at the teaching centers, as you described, Rinpoche. In modern, in kind of a Western ideas about improving our mental condition, self-help, mental health, self-improvement, these kind of modern ideas with influencers and different teachers. One thing that everyone in the Western modern science is coming to realize very strongly, we can see, is this idea that you really need to immerse yourself in the community of what you're trying to do, right? You're trying to do beneficial things, learn something good, improve yourself. You can't just be all on your own, flying solo. You need to have this really full immersion and the community group. And I think, I've been studying this kind of Western ideas for a long time as well. And I think we're getting more and more emphasis on that idea. So when you talk about the importance of like this community center, working with the Sangha, as we said, like the spiritual community, the Sangha in Buddhism, this has been understood to be of the utmost importance for many centuries, for millennia. This is very important. And as specifically, as you mentioned, this kind of Drupchen, this intensive group practice to really work on these fundamental ideas. So we can see how this is so important. So it's very fortunate that we have the opportunity not only to learn from you and learn from these teachers like yourself, but to come together at a center like you have there in Finland, but then also online programs and be able to share that around the world is so important. So thank you so much for sharing and being available for helping us build that community of doing spiritual work.
My pleasure, my pleasure.
So Rinpoche, today we're kind of specifically, you mentioned you wanted to talk a little bit about how we're trying to cultivate this self-improvement, get to know our real nature, understand our own consciousness, and overcome our problems. So this is in Buddhism, we call the wisdom of enlightenment, as you mentioned. So how is it, it's a fascinating idea you mentioned that we can work with both our suffering and challenges, the difficult things, and also with our happiness and joyfulness and successful things. And this is all part of our mental and energetic dimension. So how can we work with all of this and work towards that wisdom of enlightenment using our suffering and our happiness? Will you share a little bit with us about that?
So I think in the Buddhist teaching, the suffering and happiness is some kind of a result. That is the effect or result. So indeed, Buddha also telling many times, like many ways, that samsara is suffering and we have to be free from that. And then other hands also the many of the instructions we are talking about, that all of our practitioner or non-practitioner, whatever, if we are like go to under the suffering or under the happiness, like our mind, it goes to the under the suffering. That means when you have little suffering, then we think, oh, I'm a very suffering, I'm a very suffering. And if you do any kind of kind of succeed, and it gives like how you could say, the unpleasant. So in the like masters, they're talking about, if we collection only, oh, I'm suffering, then that person will be really, even very small things, they make very big suffering, very big suffering. So that means that we are already under the sufferings. So as long as person like become under the sufferings, and it is very hard for them to really stand up. So they cannot really face any of the suffering. We do need to, looks like we do need to know suffering, but we should more like, stand up with suffering. That is quite important. So what we want to say is that the ordinary people, wherever, when we are suffering or when we are happy, that our all emotions are kind of with that. So there is like no such separations. No, they, like you yourself become suffering. There's no such experience of suffering, or experiencer is here. There's no such thing. So therefore, this person is become aggregate of the just suffering. And that makes, I think, it's big problems. So therefore, the practitioners, the really practitioners, either there is suffering happening, such like he dying or sick, and those persons, the physically or mentally might be suffering, but the emotionally or inner kind of, they are aware of this, so they can kind of quite handle well. So in the Buddhist teaching, they're talking about the really practitioners, they are happy to die, and middle practitioners, uh, they are no worrying of the dying, and lesser practitioners, there's no regretting of the dying, for example. And then that we can apply also maybe sickness. The many of the mind training, they're talking about, if you really need to sick, and then I'm happy to be sick. Like the practitioners, their way of handle of the suffering and happiness is very big different than us ordinary people. So therefore, I think for example, of the today's situation, so many people really affect very much, like almost, I think the big crisis, and that might be also some people, they are quite fine. That is also because of the how the training of the mind dealing with suffering and happiness. So I think this, if you're really thinking of some certain people always happy, and that happiness maybe we can say came from the previous karma or his marriage and etc. But many ways also way of thinking, it's whatever happening, and we should more accept, more rejoicing instead of the always rejecting or kind of succeed, or thinking of like, oh, that is not correct, that is not correct, and etc. So therefore, like somehow we should learn a little bit more positive way, such kind of the, these emotions or situations. That is something, even you are not Buddhist, in order to dealing with well of the dealing kind of correctly with suffering and happiness. I think they don't say that you have to have refuge vows or bodhicitta vows, but that is some kind of human intelligent also. It's possible they can use the training correctly, because the many of people are doing the wrong way. They are really, why many people are become suicide, because they're collecting suffering, 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 and then become they cannot handle. So in collecting of the suffering, you don't need any permission from religion, or you don't need any kind of vows and etc. So therefore, maybe also if we use some kind of in kind of different way, opposite of the that, even those are not Buddhist or you are not follower of the Buddha Dharma, still I think uh, they can kind of dealing with suffering and happiness little different way than as usual we are doing. So that is something all of us, I think, need to learn, and big kind of responsibility too.
Thank you, Rinpoche. Yes, that's so you you mentioned that if we are too much, compounding our suffering through our unpleasant circumstances, and we're not having the right mental view. You used a phrase. You said that a person who is doing that too much will become an aggregate of sufferings. That's very poignant to me. I certainly don't want my dimension to become an aggregate of suffering. So that's very poignant. So what you just mentioned, how people who are not necessarily having refuge vows, people who are not necessarily following a Buddhist path specifically, but who want to have the benefit and help themselves and have a better mental health. You said that we can have that opportunity working with like an understanding of our sufferings, and working with an understanding of impermanence. Can you share a little bit more just how somebody who maybe is not really involved in the training and not really calling themselves a Buddhist, how can they apply some of these very powerful basic ideas of the Dharma to help their situation with their suffering?
So I think it's Shantideva, one of the great Indian master, and Shantideva, who is really kind of the training the mind. He is like great, how you should say, like I think it's more like how you should say that today, for example, like we have what is called English, that who brought something new things like researcher of the mind. Like Shantideva is like one of the great researcher of the mind, and he says that he used one quotation: "Lapar somewhat dopar namse." Rap the same song. Lapar somewhat dopar rap the same song means uh, that whatever you want to train, whatever you want to train. And then the beginning that we need to be more like mindfulness, mindfulness. Because if we cannot handle the mind well, and then there's no such you can really train anything. Like, of course, Hlapa Songwa Dopai means, Hlapa means training. In Buddhist, we explanations, training of the meditation, training of the wisdom, training of the conduct. But that training can be anything, can be training of the, like, for example, of the, just thinking of the life situation. That also we need to train, we need to learn. Like for us, all of us, we learn something since we are work, but we learning until 30 or 40, even some people 50 years they are learning things, but their learning is something more like object, and they don't much learn about mind. That we can clearly see. And the intention of these learning things are also for the benefit of this life, how we get good job, how we can handle our job, and etc. So therefore, entire life, or almost, we are just learning, but that learning is more like object, and we think the objects are something that's subject of the learning, but mostly that we don't much think about our mind or subjects we need to learn. But Shantideva says, whatever you training, even wisdom, meditation, conduct, and before, what you need to learn is, we need to learn of the mind. So I think this is something really, even our Buddhist practitioners, we really need to know these things. Because I think, like for myself, I learned many things, but when comes scare or fear or sick, suffering, whatever, I think I'm a very normal guy, then it's become like, it's very much suffering or scared and etc. Why? Because I didn't prepare those things in my mind. And then also, when we learn more about mind things, then the good things that we know this, whatever happening in our head is nothing remaining there, like even actually in the actually we say there's nothing remain, but of course when we're really feeling suffering or feeling kind of hope or scare or any kind of emotions at that moment, it looks like it's remaining forever. And because of that, we are really scared, that it will be big happening. And this is something that I cannot bear. This is something such that things that I have to do something. So either you take drugs or then injection or whatever, sleeping pills and whatever we're doing, because we don't know this kind of scare or this kind of sadness will go away. But actually, it will go away. Let's say for us, all of us now, like the middle age, so we have had many difficulties. And at those times, I think all of us also think of this is something we cannot handle. But today, maybe even we don't remember. And certain things certain things we used to, we cannot think. That when you think that, you get shocked, you get some kind of very kind of fears or unpleasant feelings. But today, you can think, you can talk, and even you can see those objects, but still nothing affect. If we would know those things before or while they're happening, maybe we do not have that kind of fear or scare. And same things, I think, whenever we have this kind of feeling difficulties, and if we already knew that term, this will be impermanent. The mind has vastness. They have many things can appear, but they have space also. All things are also liberated into that or dissolve into that. That is the really quality of this mind. There is sharpness, and there is also best kind of the space that they can also holding things. So if we do not learn these things, and then we have problem. So therefore, I think before we should know this our own emotions or mind well, how they are really functioning. You know, I think we cannot control, let's say that you never ever had any angry or any desire. I think that is somehow, that is, as long as this awareness is within us, maybe those are also coming. But the things also, we should know these are the liberate, these are the also go, these are the like something, maybe it is sometimes good to have something like that. But if we don't know these things, then we took very seriously and just feeling of the experience of the suffering and etc. And then we holding those things. And even sometimes I feel that people hope, something big things happen. And the actual really that big things actual even come to actual that things, but they are more suffering of the before you think that something big happening. That period is more suffering than actual that suffering it comes to that. Those are the lack of the, I think, education of the mind. So I really very how you could say joy of the read of the Shantideva's book, and particularly like for example of the any kind of you want to train, even worldly things or education, whatever. Before, I think we should learn a little bit more about mind. This is today's, I think people really need to concerning, because we have a lot of destructive and many people really very hard life. Their life is not because of the money, because of the power, but more like, stress, fear, and then the jealous, proud, and those all things are kind of mixture. So life is a little bit sometimes very horrible, you can say, So therefore, whoever, as practitioners or our dear ones, maybe sometimes at least 1 minute to 10 minutes, try to read a little bit, think of the how the mind functioning. That is something I think is quite important.
Thank you, Rinpoche. Thank you so much. Wow, it's very inspiring and comforting for me how you say, you're really sharing how the Buddhist Dharma, the Buddhist teachings really can just articulate these ideas about the way our mind and our consciousness works, the nature of our mind, and you are able to share it in such a beautiful and articulate and simple way that is really approachable. This is a topic that in Western modern science is really very famous and everyone wants to know. Everybody knows that they should understand the way our mind works and the way our consciousness works. And in modern science, there's a lot of really exciting research and great ideas, but it's always something seems really complicated. You have to think about chemistry and psychology, and it's very complicated to kind of wrap your head around sometimes. A lot of good content. But one thing I really appreciate is how you are able to just share the Buddhist Dharma that can describe our consciousness in a very synthesized and a kind of overarching way. And I find it so helpful and comforting. And it's almost as if just when you say a few simple sentences about the nature of mind, it just helps me to really just relax my tensions right in that moment. Like, for example, you shared a moment ago, you said, oh, our mind has sharpness and vastness. And in that vastness of our mind, many things can arise and manifest, but then everything can dissolve into it as well. And just you saying that, it just really comforts me and makes me feel very good about like it's going to be okay somehow. So thank you so much for that. I really appreciate your teachings there.
Thank you.
So now let's go. So let's go to our institute director and our webinar host ongoing, Menpa Phuntsog Wangmo. Menpa Wangmo, hello. Thank you for being with us. How are you today?
Thank you. I'm good. Thank you.
And it looks like a beautiful sunny day there. And you are in the Massachusetts at the United States headquarters for the School of Shang School of Tibetan Medicine. How are everything there? Everything going well?
Yes, everything's good. You are right. Yeah, I'm here at the Giga, so everything's good.
So Menpa Wangmo, you expressed that you want to share a little bit with us from the perspective of traditional Tibetan medicine, and we're discussing kind of the nature of happiness and also suffering, and how we can understand these as kind of understanding our mind and understanding our dimension. And I know in Tibetan medicine we have a lot of emphasis and teachings on these things, on what is the nature of our mind, how does our consciousness work with our health, and how can we have the mental health and the energetic health and the physical body health as well. So can you share with us a little bit about the nature of suffering and happiness and our health in terms of Tibetan medicine?
Okay, thank you. Yeah. So in the nature of the happy or nature of the suffering, when we're thinking like suffering, where is the suffering? Or when we're thinking like happy, where is the happy? So this both sort of like the dealing into this body and the mind. So these two is like either we are expressing or experiencing the happy or suffering, or either also like the physical body also the experiences. So these two is like a two main sort of like the show or expressing the happy or suffering. So in the Tibetan medicine, we explain this kind of like the metaphor of the water and ice. So the water has a nature like liquid, fluid, soft, oily, gentle, whatever. And then after certain temperature change, and then they change all the natures of the water. It's not liquid anymore, not soft anymore. So it became another one we call is the ice. Also, if that ice goes to another temperature, can ice melt and then boils? Another temperature, another texture. So all those kind of like expressing is that the same body and the same mind, same so like the body and the mind. So this we say is like in the Tibetan medicine, number kurwa and number majurwa. So either is unchanged the conditions of the body element or the mechanisms, or they changed. So changed, unchanged is sort of like the Tibetan medicine is main topic is like the 5-element theory. So based on that is as long as the 5-element is balanced, and then we will be healthy. Same also like outside natures. As long as the outer nature is balanced, then we will have good summer, good winter, good autumn, or whatever. If they're not balanced, then we will have the disasters. Same like that way also inside our body, 5-element not balanced time, then we will have same things that time, and then which we call as a suffering, either physically or the mentally. So it's what happened this kind of moment. So when we're looking like at the conditions of the disease, so in order to become a imbalance, they have to have a condition. So without condition, we cannot sort of like will not happen something imbalanced or whatever. So when we're looking the conditions, and then in Tibetan medicine, we say so always there is two cause conditions with us. One condition could be the diet, one condition could be the behavior. So the diet is sort of like understandable. So we need to eat 3 times a day. Why? Because we need to regenerating our original elements which we have in the body. So our body is composed by 5 elements. Those 5 elements need to be regenerated every single moment. So this is the reason we eat the food. Sometimes it's commonly we eat 3 times a day. Sometimes it's even more. Some people do little less, and it depends. But not only the food, but also the behavior is important. So when we look in the behavior, it's like behave due to the physical behavior, mental behavior, and also verbally behave. So this kind of like that the behave is we say the long-term distance cause of the disease is the 3 poison, and the short-term cause of the disease is the 3 Nyingma, which is the 5 element imbalance. So when we're looking like the behave, and then also important to work on the behaves of the 3 poisons, and then also in general any kind of like your body, mind, and then verbal action. So this is sort of like the one basic understanding of our sufferings, where is like the sources of the sufferings coming from. So as Rinpoche said before, if we are like smart enough, beware enough, strong enough, understanding everything is impermanent, momentarily changing, but what's not changing is our mind. If we have a strong mind, which means is our mind is we know everything can be changed. So we like had enough, we prepared well, we learned well, we understanding well, not understanding or learned intellectually, but also we carry into our life. Everything will change. So don't worry. Happy can change to the unhappy, unhappy can change back to the happy, because is the good change to the bad, and then there also big chance to bad change to the good. So if we know these kind of things, everything's impermanent. Everything is under this impermanent. Only one remain is our mind, always with us. If we know that one, if we learned that one, if we know how to maintain, how to watch, how to care, and then I think is more or less okay. In the Tibetan medicine, we call it like so there is like 1,000 types of the disease, and then each disease, if we counting a condition, is impossible. So like today, up to 2019, we have plenty of the disease, countless of the disease. But then there's one new disease came, there's no specific name, then we just call it as COVID-19. So this kind of thing. So the disease is countless, sufferings is countless. But what happened is that the root of all those suffering is that the selfish, non-understanding is like the real nature of the samsara. We call the marikpa. So marikpa means is not knowing the conditions of the samsara, or you are not be aware of your own mind, or you are not understanding is like emptiness, selfless. So this is also like the root of all the creators, root of all the problems. If we know this kind of thing, everything changes. Only we don't change is our mind. So need to be like strong, understanding, tolerance. If we learned all those kind of things, then I think is like we are pretty well. So this is also in the Tibetan medicine, we say sort of like always you remember these 2 conditions is the root of the cause, like creating the cause problems, causing conditioning. So what you need to do is always be aware. Be aware of what? Be aware of your mind, and through that all your actions. When we talk like a medical, like a physical way, if we are not be aware of our diet, then we have a lot of problems causing from the diet. The food is supporting, maintaining the life, but a lot of disease, today's our suffering, either physical suffering or mental suffering, is related to what we're eating. Same thing also, we try to obtain the happiness. Everybody is running, we all doing something, is to try to obtain the happiness. But then as a result, we brings a lot of sufferings. So this kind of thing also, like if we are understanding this kind of like a cosmetic thing, I had enough, trained enough, not only trained, but is like the practice carrying into our life, then I think this is sort of like pretty, should be okay. So that's I want to say.
Thank you, Menpa Wangmo. So one thing I notice about what you share that's really interesting to me is how we're talking in Tibetan medicine about the principle of diet. As you said, it's so important working with the diet seasonally, day to day, and working with this kind of causes and conditions of disease. But what you just specifically mentioned was one point that caught my attention, is that the diet can be related not only to our physical problems, but also our mental problems as well, our mental health. So this is really interesting connection between our diet, because, okay, so we eat something bad, then we get indigestion or we gain weight. So it's physical problem. That is easy to understand. But then this kind of mental connection between our attachments and what we're trying, why we're going for this food or how this food affects to our mind and energy is really kind of more interesting. Is there anything else you can say about this connection? Because I think that if people can understand the mental energetic idea connection with the diet, this can be very helpful.
Okay, so I think there is two things. One could be like addictions. There's certain things we are addicted to certain foods. But another one also like the certain like natures of the food conflict to our own body elements. An example, when we're dividing into the food into the 6 tastes. So any kind of like the sweet taste food is composed by the water and earth element. So water and earth means is heavy, cold, sticky, lubricated, and then also sort of like the dull. So this kind of food, when we eat, in general, it is very important to have those kind of food because we need to grounding our body, also our mind. Also, we need sort of like stable. Also, we need to sort of like the calm. So many aspects sweet is very important in food. So sweet, when we talk sweet, does not mean it's like sugar candy is sweet. That's not all in the sweet. Sweet means is all the dairy products, original dairy products, all the meat products, all the grain products. All those is like under the sweet group. But if you eat too much of the sweet, then what happened is in our body is too heavy. Physically heavy, which we call is gain weight. Mentally heavy, which we call is losing mind. And sort of like losing the memories. And verbally heavy, also we don't want to talk. So what happened is like physically, mentally, everything became sort of like heavy, cool, dull, and then unmotivated gradually, and then lead to the unmotivated. Meantime, also what happened, as you said, is can extinguish the digestive heat. And then starting from there, then we created many other problems. An example, like developed heaviness, I mean, in the body, that heavy creating sort of like in the brain level or the neural level is like produced like a heavy, like a cloudy. So then all the energy became sort of like affected, slow. memory is slow, movement is slow, thinking is slow, and also all the circulation also falls into the slow. Meantime, they extinguish the digestive heat, which means is also we lost the fire element in the body. The fire means is all the brings like sharpness, smartness, activeness, and also willingness. Of course, also like the entire metabolic system. So in order to regenerate the body element, we have to have this, the metabolic system is strong. So then eating too much heavy, cold, sweet, and then that damage to the metabolic system, then also we don't have like smartness, sharpness, willingness. And then at the time what happens, also we became is more sort of like lazy, physically lazy, and then produce is more sort of like sadness, and then sort of like sadness, loneliness, depressions. And then if that goes more serious cases, then also they can cause many other things. But this is the same also any other element, one element damaged, then they created other things. So if we talk all those things, I'm worried maybe is using too much time. So if someone interested these kind of things, also we have in our website. So also other maybe it's webinars is more explained.
Thank you, Menpa Wangmo. Thank you so much. Yeah, so it's very clear, as you say, you're very much articulating this basic idea about diet with our elemental health in Tibetan medicine. So we have this, we get nervous for, I mean, this COVID-19 global health crisis is such a perfect example of what you're explaining, because we get very nervous about what we're reading in the news and seeing in our community. They have a lot of mental agitation, fear, and attachment. And so this is our lung, our air element is getting very agitated. And as you explained, we immediately want to put that sweet taste and crave that sweet taste, that heavy, soft, and smooth part, and kind of dampen that down. And we think that's going to solve that, allay that fear and tension. But as you explain, it really ultimately doesn't help, because we get too much of this heaviness, this too much of this this paidkan, this earth water element, ultimately can contribute to our depression, to our lack of motivation. So I think this is something that a lot of people will really relate to as you're explaining in this current situation. I can tell you myself, when we hear these scary things in the news and they're saying, oh, maybe this is going to be a very terrible problem, a disaster in our community, that doesn't make me think, okay, maybe I'll do like eat light and healthy and have a sharp mind and to be more active. No, immediately I want to say, oh, I have to fill my house with a stockpile of grain, and I need a freezer full of butter, and I need more of this to, like it's immediately this attachment to the heavy foods. So I think it's very clear as you explain that. Thank you so much. So I had one more question for you about this kind of topic of our dealing with our suffering and happiness and how we can work with that to create wisdom. So in Tibetan medicine, we have this beautiful image of the tree of health, these this imagery of our healthy dimension as a beautiful tree with leaves and branches. And then we talk about different aspects of our dimension from that context. And what that has at the very top of this tree, if we're able to coordinate our diet and lifestyle and have a healthy bodily constituents and a healthy elemental balance, our Nyingma, our internal humors, then we can receive the benefit of having these flowers and the fruits of health. That is kind of the expression of what it means to be healthy in a human dimension, and then how you can use that health to achieve wisdom or to have a benefit, or what it means to have a really healthy life. So can you, and I've always for many years found this to be very inspiring and elucidating for what it actually means to be healthy and happy in this world. Can you share with us a little bit about these flowers and fruits of health, and how do you think it corresponds with how we can have our understanding of our healthy life?
Okay. Okay, so, and then I go back a little bit to finish that of the last part, a little bit continue. So, because based on your comment, yes, when we're eating sort of like the more heavy things, the sweet things, yes, harms to the earth element increase, and then as we said before, harms. But then what we can do is like we can put some spices, always like the nature of the food can be changed. Because each tradition we have like the cooking system, we put different spices, included salt. So when we putting sort of like small salt in the food, the salt is like the element of the fire and the water element. So in the salt, there is a like a fire element. So we put the salt, one is to make the taste, also there are many things, but one of the main function of putting the salt in the food is to help easy to digest. So this is the one of the purpose, put the salt in the food. As I said, also there are many other purpose. Same as like that way, also we can put salt like cardamoms. Cardamom is also sort of like that the one of the spices. Cardamom has many benefits, but it's one of the main cardamom job is to increase the metabolic systems, to help easy to digest food, to protect the digestive heat. So all those kind of reason is like the sesame, I mean the cardamom is important one. And another simple, we put like a garlic, onions. The garlic, onion, both ending taste is like hot, pungent, which means is that the fire element is contained. So for that reason, this kind of like spicy we put also in the food to help easy to digest, and they also like the like to changing the natures of the food into balanced way. Heavy is not too heavy, cold is not too cold, sticky is not that sticky. So this kind of always changing the nature of the food. So I really like when I go travel to the other countries, observe to the people's like traditional way of the cook. I'm not sure like the modern way of the cooking. I'm not sure how much we can learn for the purpose of the health beside the taste. But when we're looking like a grandmother's kitchen recipe, so this kind of, it does not matter which tradition, which culture, which region, every time what they're cooking, which kind of spices use, when use, how to use, each of them, there is a big meaning. So this is also very important. Once we learn the cook, when we're talking like a diet, there's a lot of things involved. Just when we're looking at green vegetables, green vegetable involved with many people's hands, many people's good intentions put into that, and then many people's also hard work. So when we eat food, also another one is like happy and then appreciate to the food, thanks to the food. Also this also is like a side of to get the fully benefit from the food. So this is also important. Once we do all those kind of good things, then we say we able to keep our bodily constituents as a healthy. So as you mentioned, there is 2 flowers and then 3 fruits in Tibetan medicine. So Tibetan medicine, this the tree, entire study of the Tibetan medicine, there is sort of like 3 roots, 9 trunk, and then 12 branches. But the first root, we have 1 root, 2 trunk. The first trunk presented like healthy, And the second trunk presented sort of like the unhealthy. Healthy and unhealthy both is into one root because that root presented our own self, like the body. And then on that the healthy tree, we have this that the lung tipper pagan, which is a 5 element. And also we have the bodily constituents. And also we have the waste product, which is that our physical body materials and all the function system and all the energy systems. So that is we explained on the healthy tree. So that healthy tree presented like that as like the water element. I mean the water as before changed into the ice or before changed into the boiling water, like just like a natural water. So this we call the healthy. So on this healthy trunk, and then they like the special this that the branches of the 7 bodily constituents. So 7 bodily constituents is like blood, muscle, so on and so forth. Once we are healthy, then all those things is like balanced. When we suffering time, which main is like where the disease is located, is into those 7 bodily constituents, either muscle problems or the blood problems, bone problems, tissue problems, nerve problems, tendons problems. So it's like that the physical material aspect. So if those physical material aspect is healthy, the functional system is healthy, so then that time is we are healthy, which means we have is good complexion, strong body, strong mind. And also in the Tibetan medicine, we call is like a strong dang, which is like a strong immune system, which means is now we are able to defend to the disease and to protect our body. So in case this moment comes, this kind of condition comes on that, like on the 7 bodily constituents, the branch of there, then we will have 2 flowers. So the one flower present like the healthy body, which is like a healthy, physically healthy, emotional healthy, mental healthy, energy healthy, whatever aspect, all the system is healthy. So that we call is a healthy flower of the healthy. And then the second flower is a long life. Once we have the healthy body, now there is a big possibility to achieve to the long life. So long life is important for many aspects. So either Buddhism explained is a long life is important, medicine explained is long life is important, and then we all whole sentient being we have desire to be long life. Because as once we have a longer life, there's a possibility to achieve whatever our desire. Either you want to become a wealthy person, spiritual person, enlightenment, whatever you want to achieve. If you have a long life, there is a possibility to achieve that. So that reason is like this, that the healthy flower and the long life flower. On that healthy flower, we have 2 fruits, which they call is the Dharma fruit and the wealth fruit. So if we are healthy physically, mentally, everything, then we will have good conduct. Good conduct is a base of all the knowledge. So the human conduct is like base of all the knowledge. So for that reason, if we have a healthy, means is we have to have a good conduct. Without good conduct, attacking someone, lying someone, killing someone, and then we cannot have a good health. So for that reason, it's like on the healthy flower, we have this that the Dharma. Dharma means is also sort of like the conduct. Dharma could be is many way of understand of the Dharma. Dharma could be is sort of like the spiritual, or Dharma could be is also conduct. So Dharma can carry into like many aspects, so that the essence of the Dharma looks like is well trained your mind. Like if your mind as like a wild horse now is trained as like able to ride. So this kind of mind looks like we need it. So these two sort of like this, the Dharma flowers, and then another one is a wealthy flowers. The wealth also could be like wealth, many aspects of the wealth, but at this moment also we can understand the sort of like wealth of the material aspect. So if we have like a healthy body, healthy mind, there is chance to also we accumulate or obtain the wealth. So these two fruit is on this, that the healthy flowers. And then the second fruit, which we call is like ultimate happiness, happiness, flowers of the happiness, is on the flower of the long life. So if you have a good long life, plus if you utilize long life well, then you will achieve ultimate happiness. So short happiness, when I'm thirsty, if I get a cup of water, and I'm happy, this is one happy. But then after a few seconds, a few hours, I will have same suffering, same desire. Again, I need to drink all day. So another happiness is sort of like when I sick and they treat it, then I'm happy. But that does not mean is the last time I'm going to sick and the last time I'm going to treat. I will seek again and again till the end of my life. And then, so this is also not permanent. So the permanent happiness is if you really understanding what is the like purpose of the human body, what is the human lives means. And then also if you understanding sort of like what is the nature of the samsara, as before the Rinpoche said, if you really understanding carrying into your daily life, like impermanent. So then that will brings like the ultimate happiness. An example is like end of the December, the end of the 2019, we are pretty okay. But then suddenly came this, the disease. If we know before that, happy, but can be changed. But now we are sort of like in the middle of this pandemic. But if we know, okay, don't worry, we'll change again into the good way. And then also every moment comes, every circumstance comes, if we understanding this also opportunity to learn something, opportunity to practice something, to utilize something, to train something, to get experience. Everything is useful. Everything is useful. There's no useless things. Everything is useful. Happy is useful, unhappy also useful. If you practice sort of like the patience, if we try to get like a practice of the patience, and someone need to make angry, everybody around you is kind, gentle. There's no place to practice to become a patient, tolerant. So this kind of reason is every opportunity is a teaching, is a useful. So if we're able to carry this kind of thing, understanding that, then we get like ultimate happiness. So this is like that three, like 2 flowers and then 3 fruit meanings. And roughly, yeah.
Thank you, Menpa Phuntsog. So happiness is useful and also suffering is useful. And not only that, we have health and not health is 2 trunks on 1 root. So our connection with the happiness and suffering. Wow, thank you so much for that. That's excellent. All right, well, so Rinpoche, is there anything else that you would like to share with our audience? Some advice, we talked about a lot of ideas of how we can work with the suffering and happiness, and how whether or not we're following a Buddhist path or just not so much specifically, we can still work with the awareness of our mind to overcome our problems and to cultivate wisdom. Is there anything else you can share with our audience as far as maybe practical advice or resources if they want to learn more and then go more in that direction?
So I think Menpa Phuntsog Wangmo talk very details about how to handle of the suffer or happiness. And then actually that all of us, the one wish is to be happy and to be free from the suffering. So these two things are like our daily life, these two things, because of these two things, and we are today very busy. We all live for that and we are run for that, and our life is for that. So therefore, I think that really the really source, what is the really this happy and suffering come from? And I think there are many great people, they're talking a lot, but still, I don't know about the conclusion, common agreement. However, in Buddha Dharma, Buddhism, we talk about the karma. It's really important. Karma and cause and effect is great link. So as followers of the Buddhas, that is something we should really need to concerning. I think it's because of the not only Buddha is great, because of the not only like Dharma is wonderful, but because of our life, these two things are very important. So therefore, then Buddha mentioned like again and again from Hinayana to the great professionals. So therefore, we have some responsibility, and that responsibility is we need to think and we need to really some kind of research about it. So I often think as this coronavirus or COVID-19 is some kind of very little substances, and it spread to all world from one to now all world. So even this coronavirus, it should be some kind of substances, I think we talk about power of substances, power of the mental, power of the mind. These three kind of power is some kind of immeasurable. So this among these three, the substances is might be even less powers, less power than like mental or mind. However, little substances, the action, the power, it affects to the whole universe. So the great nation to the small nations, they are all suffering. So that is how actually the circumstances, circumstances can affect. So therefore, so that substances, that is link of our body. And then we have also mentors, mentors, the great, I think like 1,000 years before, maybe there's no such medicine here, but they do some mentors, the healing mentors, healing the people by the mentor. So for example, in Tibet and also ancient time, there is system because the power of the speech, the pure speech, or power of the mentor has power, and those are some kind of almost invisible, but still the action or the pure, the wings has that kind of power. And then the mind power also, like aspiration, or that the mind has really also great powers. For example, we talk about Buddha's mind, Arhat's mind, Bodhisattva's mind, that they can holding all universe in the mind. They are omniscient, and we say all phenomena, they can see everything like we see something in our hand. So that means they are holding things. So these three are also based on the, I think, our actions. Normally we talk about action of the body, action of the speech, or karma, or action, whatever action of the mind. So when these things goes well, I think then the your, how you could say, environment, it will be changed. So when the environment change, then I mean environment change into positive. When these three doors are doing bad, if we keep always bad thoughts in our head, I think even you try to find something good place, it will very difficult. If you live alone, that is difficult. If you live with someone, that will be difficult because you keep some difficult thoughts in our head. And that is we call, I think, also action or karma and cause and effect. So therefore, all of us, so we need to taking care of the good karma and cause and effect or action. And then among this, I think particularly um, the mind, the mind, positive thinking, and like how should say that, or more peace and love and positive thoughts and etc. And then those things, it did not come just by, your maybe, if you get very lucky, if you have some merit, if you have done some karma, then maybe you see some maybe masters, they can change something, or you see some holy place, your mind can be changed. But also, if we don't have that kind of fortunate, then maybe we need to study. I think that study with your experience. So we don't, in Buddhist, we talk about mind very much, root mind, or, branch mind, negative mind, positive mind. If you think those are the subject and we read that, we learn that kind of things, that those things may be not so helpful, because those also you learn mind, but that mind is some kind of subject. But every day we have a lot of emotions coming. With that as our teacher, we can take this kind of things as our teacher, and we try to learn every day, dealing with how way to deal is the best. We need to learn ourselves every, this either the arising of the positive or negative. That is something we need to take as teacher and to develop, better way. So maybe one day then, even emotionally happy, that we are not so much kind of exciting or joy, and or emotionally you are suffering, maybe we don't that suffering, like as I mentioned, the dying is the most biggest case for us, but some practitioners, they can happy to die, as well as also I think, if mind they accept and everything acceptable. For example, if you think that youth is changed into old age is big things, I think normally unacceptable, because this is almost like changing of your life. But we learned that we are accepting. So when you are 20 years, 30 years, we still think young, 40 years, 50 years, we still think young. Maybe you see some your face, some kind of change. So we use something methods to see us like before. And you're physically, like how you could say that bodies have become not functioning as before, but still we are kind of acceptable. Why? Because that way we learned. So exactly same things. The mind also we can learn. I think we can learn, and one day maybe we can dealing of the all kind of emotions. So maybe one day the emotions not much bother of the your mind, our mind, or our mental. So that means I think the kid is the both, suffering and in happy, bring into the positive way or enlightenment path. And when they are nothing affect through the emotional happiness and suffering, then might be our mind is very stable. And when this mind more stable, then ripat on the. So in the 37 practice of the Bodhicaya Avatara says, that the Bodhicitta Avatara says, when your mind more stable and then more clear, more calm. So therefore, then the vipassana meditation or extraordinary scenes appear in our mind, and then that also support our mind more stable. And these two things, vipassana and samadhi, these two helps, starting to keep good meditation, good conduct, and good wisdom. And that way then maybe one day it will appear only enlightenment experience. Today maybe we are experience of only samsara, but maybe one day we appearance of only enlightenment things. So therefore, those are, we need to start the cause and karma and cause and effect of the karma. We need to kind of have confidence with that, and kind of Buddha's teaching really based on this, and then we need to build all kind of things. So that is the, uh, I think that is I kind of thought, or my masters also telling me many times, but of course, then like laziness, maybe the laziness people cannot change much, but we need to think something like that way. So I think anyway, today's topic and our this together with medicine and Buddha Dharma to put together is very wonderful. I often think the medicine is also one of the very great methods to learn of the Buddha Dharma, because Buddha mentioned the first will, the training will of the Dharma for noble truth. People don't understand. So therefore, he gives just example of the medicine, sick, sick and medicine, and where the sickness came from. And when you know that, then you need to apply of the like antidote Dharma. Dharma is medicine, and samsara is like we are sick person. So Buddha told they give this together. Buddha used that kind of many ways. Sometimes Buddha says in the sutta teaching says the doctor, the teacher is like doctor, and the Dharma is like medicine. Uh, okay, Dharma is like medicine, and then the listeners are like who are sick, patients, and then keeping Dharma in mind is like how you apply of the medicine. So therefore, and this topic together is very wonderful, and Dharma is very supportive. The medicine is very supportive to understand for the mind medicine of the Dharma. So therefore, how should say that maybe this today we are together is such good occasion.
Thank you so much, Rinpoche. It's wonderful. Yes, the medicine of the Dharma. So this connection between our health and our teachings couldn't be more clear. Thank you so much for sharing that. It's really just so inspiring. And like I said, listening to you, Rinpoche, makes me feel like everything's going to be okay. So I really personally thank you so much for that. Okay. So Menpa Phuntsog Wangmo, we're going to wrap up pretty soon here. Would you just finish to tell us any closing comments that you'd like to share with everybody? Oh, excuse, Menpa Wangmo, you're muted. Can you make sure your volume is up?
And unmute.
That should be good now.
Yeah. Okay. So, so thank you. Yeah, thank you. And then, yeah, it's impermanent. This morning, my internet is doing well. And in the middle of the Rinpoche's talk, lost the internet, but I had the options to cell phone data. So this is option, so not bad, little bit, not that great, but it's not bad at all. So this kind of like everything's change momentarily, you know, whatever we planned is never stay as we wishes. So this also I see as like that impermanent. So yeah, it's very good. This the medicine and the Dharma. So this kind of talk together. Rinpoche is such a great teacher, such a great experience. So this I think engage to help more people to understanding either medicine aspect or the Dharma aspect. So in the Tibetan medicine, we say, if you really want to become a good doctor, you need to study inner teachings, which means is the Dharma. Of course, also we need to study all 10 signs. So that was the requirement if you want to become a good doctor. So which means is even you want to study, learn well the one channel, there's many ways of explain those channel systems. So this kind of way I think is good. And then I want to say to the audience the final words. Thank you, you're listening. So when we're looking like sufferings or like happy or unhappy or good or bad or whatever, every moment you try to think a little bit, why this happy is coming? Why now I'm happy? That happy, how long will last? If that something happened, what I do? Or unhappy comes, where they came, how they stay, how long will stay. So this kind of, you try to understand a little bit what is the nature of, and then as Rinpoche said, at the end you will become more familiar. Because each aspect, there is something to learn. And then always we are happy, and then we never learn what is the taste of suffering. So suffering is good because then we have experience, and then later, if someone is suffering, then we know what is the moment. So it's a sort of like a teaching, so it's good. So due to the time frame, we cannot explain everything so like too detailed. So the Tibetan medicine is like the very complexity, and the Tibetan medicine is completely like holistic. So Tibetan medicine could explain the many aspects, many ways. So if you interest the Tibetan medicine to learn more further or more details, please go to visit either Shang US website or Shang Russia school of the website or Shang School of the Tibetan medicine in Tenerife. So each Shang we have the school and in their website, they hopefully all your looking information is there. If not, please leave us a message. What are you looking for? Then we will try to get back to your answers. Another one, I want to recommend you a book. So there is many good Tibetan medicine books, translated things, but which I'm more familiar, which is that written by my teacher, Namkha Nobu Rinpoche. Such a great book. They call is Birth, Life, and Death. So you try to get that book. In that book, there are a lot of explained. The birth, life, and the death. No? So that is the 3 stages of our life. So all those things is explained into that book is perfectly. So please try to get that book and then you try to read and then you will find a lot of things. So I just want to say thank you for everybody.
Thank you so much, Menpa Wangmo. It's been really a joy to share this webinar with you once again. Menpa Phuntsog Wangmo, our ongoing webinar host and the director of the Shang Institute School of Tibetan Medicine International Programs. Thank you so much. And yes, we will have the links for our programs upcoming attached on the pinned in the comments, and also probably this book that Menpa mentioned, Birth, Life, and Death, we can pin there as well, and also hopefully some links to our special guest Tulku Dakpa Rinpoche. You can check out the Danakosha Ling Institute, his center there, and his programs and writings and teachings. I really highly recommend if you're interested to learn more about how to help with your physical, energetic, and mental dimension, especially in these challenging times, but also always. Tulku Dakpa Rinpoche, and really an honor to have you with us. Thank you so much for joining us. So we
Thank you
wish
very
you
much.
many blessings, and all that. Hopefully we can see you again next time, and just thank you so much again. And to all of our audience, as Rinpoche earlier, it is really an expression of your collective merit and good karma, our audience around the world, that is enabling us to be here sharing these wonderful teachings today. So we thank you so very much. And please follow us on social media, and especially please do join our email list. We would love to have you in the loop of our upcoming programs and offerings. And so we thank you so much. And again, join us again in 2 weeks when we're going to be sharing our webinar with Dzigar Kongtrul Rinpoche and discussing more about the connection between the Dharma and our health and our well-being in general. So please do join us then. That event will be up.
Thank you, Adam, and then Matula, and then all the team.
Here in the San Francisco Bay Area.